I'm going to read you an excerpt from The Oversoul by Ralph Waldo Emerson. The Oversoul is the 9th essay in the 1841 edition of Emerson's essays, and it remains one of the best sources of information about his faith. So bear with me, some of the language is a little old. It makes no difference whether the appeal is to numbers or to one. The faith that stands on authority is not faith. The reliance on authority measures the decline of religion, withdrawal of the soul. The position men have given to Jesus, now for many centuries of history, is a position of authority. It characterizes themselves. It cannot alter the eternal facts. Great is the soul and plain. It is no flatterer. It is no follower. It never appeals from itself. It believes in itself. Before the immense possibilities of man, all mere experience, all past biography, however spotless and sainted, shrinks away. Before that heaven, which our presentiments foreshow us, we cannot easily praise any form of life we have seen or read of. We not only affirm we have few great men, but absolutely speaking, that we have none. That we have no history, no record of any character or mode of living that entirely contents us. The saints and demigods from history, worships we are constrained to accept with a grain of allowance, though in our lonely hours we draw a new strength out of their memory, yet pressed on in our attention as they are by the thoughtless and customary, they fatigue and invade. The soul gives itself alone, original and pure, to the lonely, original and pure, who on that condition gladly inhabits, leads, and speaks through it. Then it is glad, young, nimble. It is not wise, but it sees through all things. It is not called religious, but it is innocent. It calls the light its own, and feels that the grass grows and the stone falls by a law inferior to and dependent on its nature. Behold, it saith, I am born into the great, universal mind. I, the imperfect, adore my own perfect. I am somehow receptive of the great soul, the universal mind. And thereby I do overlook the sun and the stars and feel them to be the fair accidents and effects which change and pass. More and more the surges of everlasting nature enter into me, and I become public and human in my regards and actions. So come I to live in thoughts and act with energies which are immortal. Thus revering the soul and learning, as the ancients said, that its beauty is immense, man will come to see that the world is the perennial miracle which the soul worketh, and be less astonished at particular wonders. He will learn there is no profane history, that all history is sacred, that the universe is represented in an atom, in a moment of time. He will weave no longer a spotted life of shreds and patches. He will live with a divine unity. He will cease from what is base and frivolous in his life and be content with all places, with any service he can render. we will calmly front the morrow in the negligency of that trust which carries God with it, and so hath the whole future in the bottom of the heart.
When we lit our chalice this morning, we named the light that is within all beings, the spark of truth, the fire of conscience, the glow of the divine soul. These are not simply poetic images. They point to a reality the Transcendentalists believed was not just metaphorical, but utterly real. Ralph Waldo Emerson called it the Oversoul, that infinite unifying spirit in which we live and move and have our being. It is a truth that runs deeper than opinion, the love that runs deeper than preference, the unity that runs deeper than all divisions. We might think of it as God within, or the love within, or the divine spark, or the ground of all being, or the web of life. Whatever you want to call it, it's the same intuition that we are not separate from nature, nor strangers to the sacred, but part of one great breathing whole that includes everything. Transcendentalism of Emerson and Thoreau reminds us that there is a deep river that connects us all, ancient, silent, and shifting. If we take one moment right now to become as still as you possibly can be, might you notice that breathing presence within you? It's not very loud, is it? The world of email and headlines and to-do lists and grocery lists are far noisier. The deep river moves so quietly, like sap rising through a tree. But sometimes, when you're walking in the woods and a shaft of light falls across the path, or when you hold a sleeping baby, or when we hear beautiful music, something inside of us remembers. We feel at home in the universe. We belong. Emerson believed this was not sentimentality, not wishful thinking, not our imaginations. It was the most reliable truth we could know because it comes from within. Let us step back in time for a moment to 1840s New England. America was still a very young country, and the intellectual climate was shifting. Enlightenment had brought reason and science to the prominence. The Industrial Revolution was transforming daily life. Religion, in the inherited Puritan mode, felt dry to many and dead. And then along came the Transcendentalists: Emerson, Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, Bronson Alcott, Elizabeth Peabody, Theodore Parker, boldly proclaiming that the seat of the truth is not outside in some authority, but within. They challenged the idea that faith was about clinging to tradition, or that truth could only be handed down from the past. Emerson, in the excerpt we heard today, says bluntly, "The faith that stands on authority is not faith. The soul, he says, gives itself alone, original and pure, to the lonely. Original and pure, meaning that the deepest part of us communes directly with the divine. We don't need intermediaries. We don't need even me to tell you what to believe. This was a so radical idea, in fact, that Emerson was banned from speaking at Harvard Divinity School for decades after 1838, when he gave his Divinity School address, where he told new ministers that they must listen first and foremost to the voice within and not to creeds or institutions. So what is the Oversoul exactly? Emerson describes it as the infinite unity that holds all life. It's not a God out there who intervenes occasionally in reality, in which everything lives and moves and has its being. It is, in his words, the soul of the whole. He believed each of us contains within ourselves direct connection to this soul, not in a metaphorical sense, but literally. To feel the Oversoul is to recognize that my deepest self and your deepest self are not separate. They're connected. If I hurt you, I diminish myself. If I help you, I strengthen the whole. If I tend to the earth, I tend to my own being. This is not just ethics, it's ontology. We are one with everything. Now, you might ask, why dust off Emerson in 2025? Because his vision offers us an antidote to some of our deepest ailments today. We live in a time of profound division, political, cultural, economic. The algorithms in our devices sort us into tribes and echo chambers. The language of us and them is louder than the language of we. And yet Emerson insists that beneath all the noise, we are waves of one great sea. If we all truly believed that, it would change everything. How we vote, how we shop, how we speak to strangers, how we treat those we disagree with, and how we care for the earth. The Oversoul teaches us that justice is not optional. It's the natural expression of remembering our unity. It teaches us that love is not a sentiment. It is a recognition of our shared being. It teaches us that spiritual growth is not about escaping the world, but becoming more deeply connected to it. One of the hardest things the Transcendentalists asks us to do is to trust that quiet voice within yourself. They didn't mean trust your every impulse, your every desire. They meant trust the place inside yourself that lies beneath your fear, beneath your ego, beneath the social masks that we all wear. How do you hear that voice? You get very still, like a rock, and you pay attention. We notice that the nudge that says this is the right thing to do, even when it's inconvenient. Emerson says the soul calls the light its own. It doesn't flatter or follow, it simply knows. But here's the thing, our culture trains us to doubt our inner knowing. We're told to trust experts, advertisements, algorithms, anything but our own profound wisdom. Spiritual work is to reclaim that trust, not in defiance of knowledge or reason, but as a grounding to it. In the hymn we just sang, The Lone Wild Bird, written long after the Transcendentalist movement, we hear an aching reminder that all life is sacred. And yet it's still talking to something outside of us, right? If we sang that song as if it were an interdependent song, connected, we're not asking, the lone wild bird is in its flight and still with me, and it never leaves my sight. Because I am thine, I rest in the universal we, and that spirit comes and rests in me. It's a completely different song, right? But it's the same song. And that's the truth of what the Transcendentalists were trying to say, is that it's not outside of us, that divine. It's inside. We just have to be quiet enough to hear it. Here's another Transcendentalist lesson for today. We don't have to justify beauty or love or kindness with some ulterior motive. The Oversoul expresses itself in each petal of a flower, each sunrise, each sunset, each act of compassion. All history is sacred, Emerson says, even the small overlooked moments. If we were to see the world without our human baggage, we might slow down. We might stop multitasking long enough to notice the sky outside, the field. We might give a full, unhurried moment to the presence of the friend sitting next to you or the stranger. Emerson ends his meditation on the Oversoul with a call to stop living a spotted life in shreds and patches, and instead to live with divine unity. What would that look like for you, to live a little bit more in divine unity? Well, it would mean that our values aren't something we put on like a special outfit for Sunday morning. They'd weave through how we earn and spend money, how we speak to our family, how we vote, how we rest, how we take care of ourselves, how we take care of our planet. It would mean seeing no part of life outside of what is sacred. Every aspect of your life is sacred. This is really hard for me to say because I'm moving right now. My whole life is chaos. Don't look in my car. It's horrible. And yet, all of it is sacred. Even the packing, the sorting, the saying goodbye to things, the giving away of things, the keeping what I keep and what I lose. It's all sacred. And when I remember that, it's lighter. My body aches a little less. I feel hopeful about the change I'm in the middle of. What would it mean to set no part of your life outside of the sacred? Washing dishes, driving to work, taking a shower, sending email, each moment as part of the waking the whole fabric of your life. It would mean that we measure success not on achievement or possession, but on integrity. But how much our outer life matches the truth of our inner life. And we grow our inner life so that it has more meaning. Now, this is not easy. The Transcendentalists sometimes make it sound so effortless. Just trust yourself. But in reality, discerning the Oversoul's guidance can be very difficult. Sometimes what we want and what the soul is nudging us toward are not the same things. Sometimes the path of unity calls us to great discomfort and sacrifice and change. And sometimes the voice within is so faint, so buried beneath the noise of our fear and resentment and our distractions that we can't even hear it. But this is why we come together as a community. Alone, we can lose that thread so easily. It's so fine. But together, we can help each other remember. We can check in. We can be seen. When we sing together, when we silence together, when we listen to each other's stories, we strengthen that radio signal to the divine. If we were to be modern transcendentalists, here are a few practices we might take up. Daily quiet, even 5 minutes of stillness to listen inward, to turn off the phone, to listen to that river beneath the soul, the noise. We'd also pay attention to beauty a little bit more. Notice one beautiful thing each day. Don't analyze it. Just let it be beautiful. Appreciate it. Let beauty be its own excuse for being. And goodness be its own excuse. Don't try to figure out why someone did something nice for you. Appreciate that beauty of that. And then do one thing each week that strengthens the web of connection. Call someone who's lonely, or volunteer, or plant a tree. Just spend 8 minutes doing something this week that connects you to something bigger than yourself. And also practice your moral courage. When the inner voice says speak or act, even when it's risky, trust it. And if you missed an opportunity to say something you thought you should have said, remember that opportunity will come again. And this was your chance to practice, and you can say it the next time. And then finally, see the sacred. Trust each moment as part of the divine whole, whether it's doing laundry or attending a protest, especially if it's something you really don't like to do, like cleaning the toilet or vacuuming. Remember, it's sacred. What you're doing is sacred. And if you can't approach it with sacred, the sense of the sacred, come back to it when you can. The best metaphor for the Oversoul is the river. Our lives are like the current that rushes over the river. As in summer, sometimes the river runs freely, and sometimes the river is more stagnant or even frozen. But always, always beneath that river is the ground, the riverbed. It stays constant, supportive, beneath the hectic current of our lives. That is the Oversoul. This is how the Oversoul works for all of us. Even when we feel our lives are the most hectic or frozen or stagnant, the ground is constant beneath that, beneath it all. Even when we feel separated, we are part of the whole. Look around you. This collective of people you're with, they're with you. Even when you don't show up. Even when you are not here in the wintertime. This collective stands with you. Act from unity, not separation. Act from love, not from fear. The Transcendentalists were not naive. They knew the world could be harsh, unjust, and chaotic. But they also knew that the only lasting transformation begins where the Oversoul whispers, "You belong. You are not alone. You are part of the whole, and we are all connected." We are all connected. In San Francisco, California, where I did my internship, there's a street ministry program called the Faithful Fools. It lives in the Tenderloin district. They do a great deal of witness to raise awareness about the plight of the homeless in San Francisco by holding 1-day and 7-day retreats where people walk through the streets of the Tenderloin. And when they do this, at least they used to be taught this mantra: what holds us separate keeps us separate. But as we walk these streets, what still connects us? What holds us separate keeps us separate. But as we walk these streets, what still connects us? This is our question too. What holds us separate keeps us separate. As we live our lives, what still connects us? Where do you feel that? There are moments when the veil between myself and the world feels invisible, when I cannot name what keeps us apart, what clouds the truth that we are one. But in stillness, when I hear the wind whispering through the trees, when I hear the cry of the lone wild bird soaring high, it is not the voice of God I seek, but the silent thread that binds all life together. It is that voice inside each of our hearts that is the Oversoul. Friends, please trust in that voice. We need that voice now more than ever. See the divine in each of us and everyone, in everything. Let us live with the divine unity, weaving beauty and justice into every corner of your life. And when you lose sight of that Oversoul, because you will and I will, let us come back to this community, to this chalice light, to the deep river beneath all things, and remember again how connected we have always been and always will be as Unitarian Universalists, as human beings on this planet that we call home. Amen.